This is AM Agenda. Thank you very much for your company. With us now, our panel of politicians. Labor Senator Matt Thistlethwaite joins us from the Sydney CBD studio, and here in the Canberra studio, I've got Liberal MP Steve Ciobo. Gentlemen, good morning to you both.
Good morning,
Steve, I'll start with you on Afghanistan. This latest attack undermines the whole operation once again. What's your sense about the mood in the electorate towards the operation after more than a decade in Afghanistan?
Look, I think people are questioning, of course, the long-term resolve that we have to making a difference in Afghanistan. There's no doubt that, all Western democracies that have been committed to action in Afghanistan are feeling, the pain that goes with losing soldiers there. Having said all of that, we do have a clear mission. We're achieving objectives. We're really starting to make good ground on the Taliban, as I understand it, from those that have been through Afghanistan. And look, at the end of the day, that's going to be the final measure of how successful we are.
Senator, it has taken, it's more than a decade, and as you heard from the retired General Peter Lay a moment ago, real question marks as to what we're going to leave behind there.
Well, there's no doubt, Kieran, that this tragedy is profoundly disappointing, but I place a lot of stock in the views of Australian troops on the ground on these matters, and whenever I've been to defence services or functions and talked to our troops there, their resolve and their commitment to stay the course and finish the job is admirable, and they're doing fantastic work in mentoring the locals, in security and providing training, and of course services behind the scene, vocational education and training services for young kids in some of these communities to ensure that they can actually rebuild a democracy in a community and provide jobs and economic benefits for the country. I think we need to place a lot of stock in the views of our people on the ground there, and they're committed to staying the course and finishing the job, and I think that's the way we should go.
Well, it's important then, isn't it, for the Defence Minister to get things back on track with his relationship with Defence as well. There have been concerns certainly expressed by retired generals in recent weeks, and bubbling away over the weekend as well. Major General Cantwell, he was in Afghanistan, said that Stephen Smith didn't show the troops enough respect.
Well, look, Stephen's doing a wonderful job. We've got troops overseas, and they're always difficult circumstances, and it's often quite difficult to relay to the general public some of the work that Australians are undertaking overseas. But again, I reiterate the point that I made earlier. I think our troops are doing a great job, and when you speak to them and you get first-hand the stories and the difference that they're making to the lives of the people in Afghanistan, I think that's the major issue that we need to take into consideration here, and that's why we need to finish the job in Afghanistan.
There have been criticisms, Steve Ciobo, of the Defence Minister, but the bottom line is that both sides of politics agree on this. This is a bipartisan stance, isn't it? And it will remain so, do you think?
Well, it's a bipartisan stance that we need to obviously stay in Afghanistan until the job's completed, and we are achieving success in that respect. But Kieran, I noticed that the Senator just completely, flicked off a response about Stephen Smith, the Defence Minister. The reality is that the government has a major problem here. Stephen Smith has had a Major General Cantwell, come out and say this Defence Minister does not respect men and women in uniform. I mean, you could not get a more serious charge levelled against the Defence Minister than to say that this man or woman doesn't respect Australians that make the decision to serve their country in uniform. People put their lives on the line for the values of this country, and we have a Defence Minister who has done two things. Obviously openly made comments that lower the standard and the regard that people think he should have for men and women in uniform. And the second thing is, at basically every available opportunity, Stephen Smith says, I don't want to be Minister for Defence, I want to be Foreign Affairs Minister. So, I don't think it's good enough, frankly, for the Senator to simply ignore this and pretend it's not a problem. The government has a problem that goes to its very heart with Stephen Smith, and it needs to be resolved quickly.
Okay. Senator, your response?
Well, that's complete rubbish, Kieran. And for Steve to say that the Defence Minister does not respect the people in uniform is completely irresponsible. It's completely irresponsible.
It's a Major General saying it. Don't whitewash it. It's a Major General who said it.
If you allow me to finish, Stephen Smith is doing a great job as the Defence Minister of this country, and he's implemented a number of important initiatives, and we're doing the job. We're getting on with the job overseas. We've mentioned Afghanistan and the issues that are occurring there, and it's irresponsible for Steve to be making these claims and reiterating these points here.
You need to wake up to yourself, Senator. You need to wake up to yourself and recognise that it's not me making this charge, it's a Major General making this charge. You need to address that. Don't try to pin it on me. Address the fact that you've got a Defence Minister who is clearly not wanting the job and is basically having major problems with the Defence Force, and you've got a Major General who says he doesn't respect them. That's the charge that you need to answer.
Okay, yes,
well,
Senator, you do want to respond to that again?
Yeah,
because the point that Stephen Ciobo makes there is something that Major General Cantwell wrote at the weekend. So he might have that view, but so does this retired general. That's the point.
Look, this has come in the wake of the inquiry that was conducted into the incident at ADFA. The Defence Minister acted completely appropriate in those circumstances, allowed the inquiry to take its course, and we've accepted the recommendations. And I think that for people to come out and say that he's acted inappropriately in those circumstances and that he's disrespecting the role of people in uniform is completely irresponsible, and it ignores the facts.
Okay, well, let's move on then. The mining tax will be before the Senate over the next couple of weeks. It is crucial for the government, isn't it, that you get this through before the May session for so many reasons. Certainty over your forecasts and whatever else, with the tax due to kick off on July the 1st.
Yes, this is a very important economic reform for our nation, Kieran. It will ensure that the benefits of the mining boom are spread evenly amongst our economy, and it will deliver tax cuts for small businesses. And I note that the CEO of the Council for Small Business, Peter Strong, has come out today in the newspapers urging the Parliament to pass this important economic reform. We'll also see the instant asset write-off, up to $6,500 for small machinery in the first year. Boosts to superannuation in our economy. Important regional infrastructure for communities. This is a vital economic reform, and it's important that the Senate delivers this over the course of the coming weeks.
Steve Ciobo, that Senator Thistlethwaite did refer there to Peter Strong's comments from the Small Business Council. That's one of your core constituencies, isn't it, within the Liberal Party? If you're going to stand in the way of a tax cut for small business, that won't go down too well.
This is not about standing in the way of a tax cut for small business, Kieran. This is all about the coalition being committed to long-term economic success of Australia. You see, what the government is doing fundamentally wrong with this mining tax is a couple of things. The first is we've seen reports today that show that Australia's share of equity raisings for new mining capital has decreased from 21% down to 15% since 2008. So we already know that this government's dithering on the mining tax is costing miners money in terms of their ability to go out and fund new projects. In addition to that, Kieran, the government says that this is such a shibboleth for them. This is a crucial part of their economic strategy going forward. Well, where's the modelling? Where's the costings? Why is it that the government is hiding behind putting this information out there? You know, at a state government level, governments put out their assumptions about volumes and prices as a matter of course. But Wayne Swan runs and hides from this. He doesn't want to put this information out there because they have they've got a massive structural deficit with this new mining tax. It's going to, in the very short term, for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, make the budget look better off. But in 5 years from now, it's going to mean the budget is $4 or $5 billion worse off, and that's why we stand in the way.
There are question marks as to just whether or not there will be enough revenue generated from the mining tax to fund everything that the government says it will. And on that point, the government hasn't come up with the legislation yet to deliver the tax cuts with which you say small business will benefit.
There's a business tax round table going on at the moment, and the government said that they'll wait for the recommendations of that committee. But make no mistake, we remain committed to delivering these company tax cuts. The Treasurer reiterated that yesterday, and I've got to say that the double standard from Steve and his colleagues on this issue is breathtaking. A moment ago he's saying that we were dithering on the minerals resource rent tax. Well, it's simple. Pass the minerals resource rent tax. Join with us and pass it through the Senate, because he knows that it will deliver benefits for small businesses. A stark contrast. We're going to cut the company tax rate by 1%. They are going to increase the company tax rate by 1.5% to pay for their Rolls-Royce parental leave scheme. That's the stark
let's get
difference
Steve
on this
Ciobo's
issue.
response to that, because as much as you are talking about the broader questions on how much it's going to generate and so on, the modelling, they're valid questions to ask. But the point is, for small business, they could have a tax cut as of July the 1st, and the coalition won't be backing that.
No, but the reason being because you can't trust this government. I mean, this is a Prime Minister who leads a government who says one thing 6 days out from an election and then does the complete opposite when it subsequently comes to pass. The reality is that if the government's serious about this, then let's see that legislation. You know, I even heard this morning Senator Thistlethwaite saying, "Oh, well, there's a small business roundtable that's going on at the moment. We want to see what comes from that." So we're already starting to see creeping in weasel words to walk away from the commitment that they've made. We don't trust this government. We never ever think that this government will follow through with the goods, and the fact is this is a bad reform. You know, Senator Thistlethwaite says, "Oh, what does this mean we've been dithering?" Well, they have been. We've seen this mining tax in 3 different forms since it was originally announced. So we think that this government needs to get real. If it wants information, if it wants the legislation passed, put the information out there.
Yeah, okay,
Show us
that's a fair question, isn't it? Just finally, Senator, to get the detail out there, the Greens are saying the same thing.
If the coalition didn't oppose the reform, it'd be in, and small tax would have some small business would have some certainty about a cut to the company tax rate. We remain committed to this reform. We will deliver it. We will deliver it, and the tax cut will come in on the 1st of July this year. And there's no escaping the fact that under a coalition, company tax rate is going to increase. Under Labor, company tax rate is going to be reduced.
We're out of time. Labor Senator Matt Thistlethwaite, thank you very much for that. Liberal MP Steve Ciobo, gentlemen, good to see you both.
Thanks,
Big week, parliamentary week ahead. Thank you all for joining us as well on AM Agenda. We'll see you soon.